The man has only one look, for Christ's sake. Blue steel, Ferrari, La Tigra, they're the same face. Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
All right, guys, welcome to the Crazy Pills podcast. And today what I want to talk about is hashtag Stop Asian Hate. So, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, I posted a picture. It was me and my business partner, Steve. This girl, Julie. It was a picture from a few years ago, Asian, called it like the Asian sandwich. And then I noticed that on my personal Instagram page, right above it, it said, hashtag Stop Asian Hate. If you want to actually set up some kind of awareness thing to raise money, you could just click this button and then Instagram will do all of it and set it up for you, where you could raise money to like stop Asian hate. And it kind of pissed me off, but it highlights how ridiculous this like current culture is. Okay, and I'm glad it. I don't know if glad is the right word, but like, since it's about Asians, I can talk about it. It's not about some other race. It's not about like female, like a woman or whatever, right? It's about Asians. So I can actually talk about it, I guess. And the whole idea, if you're not aware, is that there's some narrative going around there that because COVID supposedly started in China, that there's Asian hate crimes, and there's people that are displaying racism towards Asians because of it. And I can just say, for me personally, I haven't experienced any of that. And am I saying that doesn't exist? Maybe like a small percentage of it somewhere around like the US, right? But even if it does, it's like a small percentage. The way we're going about it doesn't actually help anything, you know. I always joke around about this, but it's true. Okay, like stereotypes exist for a reason. Okay, the way we're biologically programmed, there's too much information, there's too much data, right? So we're seeing something, or we're experiencing something, and we can't actually start stereotyping and categorizing based off of previous experience and then like learned or like secondarily learn like behavior, like, okay, well, hey, this is what happens, right? Like maybe we never experienced something, but we've been told that, hey, this is what the world's like. That actually helps us sort the information and organize it so we can operate in the world. Or else there's just too much. If there's new data all the time, how the fuck do we make sense of what's going on, right? So stereotypes are basically our way of doing that, right? Like, hey, you know, like for example, a stereotype is Asians are good at math, right? I mean, we joke about it. It's not necessarily a bad stereotype, right? So like, it's like a common thing, but like that stereotype is there for us to make sense of the world. Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean that like all Asians are good at math. And obviously it's a very simplified way, and it's not true, but it's there for a reason. It actually helps us organize the world. So when we try to make it seem like stereotypes are bad, or like, oh, I don't stereotype, it's like, shut the fuck up. You're a human being. If you are a human being, you're going to automatically stereotype because that's the way you're biologically wired, okay? Now it's up to you to have some self-awareness that when you're stereotyping, to actually recognize that it's a stereotype and then not run with it. But to pretend like you don't stereotype, it's just not true because you're a human being. You're wired that way, okay? Now, when it comes to whatever thoughts that people have about Asians and like COVID and all that stuff, well, first of all, I haven't experienced any of that, so I think it's mostly bullshit, and it's people trying to get significance. There's a lot of like victim mentality stuff. I saw this a lot when I was in the military too, right? Like people, I'm not saying like, listen, there's people that deployed and had bad experience, right? And like I experienced like a mild form of PTSD when I was in Afghanistan. Didn't really encounter anything that bad, but just being there, being away from your family, and then just like kind of just being around all of that, like day after day after day, it messes with your head. Like I get it, okay? But because I've been there and I know what most people go through, and what most people didn't experience. They just basically sat around in Afghanistan for 6 months to a year. The amount of people claiming like PTSD and getting disability and basically finding some significance in an experience that actually wasn't that bad. Like I saw that all the time, okay? And when it comes to Asians in America complaining about how they're treated unfairly, it's a lot of the same thing, right? Like I remember like growing up, people made fun of my eyes. They made some comments and stuff, or like it's hurtful. And like it's like I remember as a kid growing up realizing, okay, I am different, and having to deal with a lot of like insecurities and stories about how because I look different, that's why like women didn't like me. It's because I'm Asian. If I was just white, I would just fit in. I would be normal. Like all that stuff. I get it, right? And as I've gotten older, I've gone through that cycle of being essentially the victim, and then also noticing what it's like when you claim something more. What if your mission, if you're a minority, is to actually shift the stereotype, right? Whereas like there's a stereotype that your ethnicity or the color of your skin means this. What if you made it like your mission to be so awesome that because of you, when other people think of Asians or whatever your skin color is, they actually think of a different stereotype, where they associate a positive stereotype with the way that you're showing up. Like wouldn't that be way more empowering, right? And like if you just think about it. You could be a victim, like, oh well, it's just not fair, and like all this stuff, like they should stop it. Or you take matters into your own hands and like you actually proactively create a new stereotype. Like that could be the game that you play. And there's just so many ways to go about it, and like there's a distinct difference between racism and then stereotyping. Okay, most of us, especially in the U.S., have not really experienced racism. Okay, there was what's going on in the Middle East between, say, like the Palestinians and the Israelis, where there's like generations of killing, and there's like actual like programmed in hate. Like they just hate the other side just because that's just a thing to do, right? Like that, we don't experience that here in the U.S. And there's so much fear in general and political correctness of basically saying anything that rocks a boat race related, that like even if there is, and there is definitely racism in the US, it's just I think most of us haven't experienced, even that if that's there, unless you're in like the backwoods, like the middle of nowhere, that is for the most part suppressed and it doesn't get to come out. So like we haven't really even experienced it, right? Like if you even go to like Europe, and then like the soccer games and like some of the stuff that goes on at the soccer games, like that is a million times worse than anything I've ever seen here in the US. And then like what we want to make a big deal, like it's so significant. And it actually kind of reminds me of, I'm gonna throw his name under the bus, but so like Joshua, like the kid that I do the Big Brother, Big Sister program with, or Big Brother program with, got him when he was 12 and he's like 16 or 17 now. Sometimes I'm like, hey man, what's up? What's going on? He'll like tell me about like a girl, right? It's like, oh, yeah, me and this girl, like we really like each other, but her parents like don't want us dating. And it's like he's making the story it's very, very dramatic, but he's making it so significant. And it's almost like the whole world revolves around like their love, which will probably last like 3 days, but like it'll like revolve around their love, and then like there's all these obstacles in the way, but like they're gonna overcome it. And it's almost like like watching like some like daytime drama or something, right? Like the way he talks about it. And it's like, listen, dude, well, I don't actually want to burst this bubble, but like in my mind, I'm like, listen, it's not that significant. It's just some girl that you're probably gonna have a crush on for like 3 days, right? But for him, it's really significant. And a lot of this, this like racial victimhood that's going on is just that, like, it's like, dude, shut the fuck up. You're making this way more significant than one, it has to be, and you're going about it in a way that's not actually empowering anyone. And if anything, the more you think like that, the more you're gonna find evidence for that out of thin air. And your physiology, what you attract, like how you act, is just gonna be more of that. And then it could be something that maybe like started out as like nothing. You're actually perpetuating it and making it more significant and giving it more momentum than it has to be. You know, and I'll end with this. I remember, you know, I came over from Taiwan when I was 5, and my dad went to UCF for his master's. You know, I was just a little kid. I came over here. I didn't know any English, but I remember my mom told me when I was young that how you act, how you behave, how you show up is going to be a representation of how other people here in the U.S. relate to Asians, because you're going to be a minority, and then like how you act has like extra significance. And that always stuck with me. And you know, like if anything, there is some like positive pride, like, hey, you know, like even if I'm not gonna do it for myself, right, there is some pride to act in a way so that Asian people can be represented in a way that like makes them proud, you know. And it's something that always like stuck with me. And whenever I hear like the race stuff and like the way people go about it, I'm like, listen, you could be a victim. And I'm not saying there's not bad things that happen, or you can actually take charge, claim some like responsibility, claim like you want to change it, and instead of shaming other people, show up and be even more awesome. You know, like show up and be even more intelligent, and then be more human, where other people are like, wow, this is just another human being who looks a little bit different from me, and like they have feelings, they have emotions, you know, they do great things, and like, wow, like it completely shattered my stereotype. Like, why not show up that way instead of this like victim thing, especially on social media, like hashtag stop Asian hate, you know. And I'll stop there, you know, with a rant, but like it's just something that in a way I'm kind of glad it happened, because like when it's Asians, I can talk about it without like all this charge. But I mean, you could probably guess it, I have the same general philosophy when it comes to other races, when it comes to like sexism stuff. Hey, it exists, you know, and I'm not a woman, I won't know what it's like. And use it as motivation, like to step up more and be more awesome and actually show kindness. And like, it just, to me, it's just way more powerful, and it's actually benefiting everyone, you know, rather than complain and shame and victimize and make it where like one side is wrong. You know, like how does that actually ever solve anything? Okay. And that's my final thoughts on it. Thanks for watching or listening. I'll talk to you guys next time.